So tonight I'm just going to visit with you a little bit about the truths and myths of GMOs biotechnology. So I'm going to give you a little background on myself so you know that I'm not just spouting off something I read on Facebook. So my name, as Chris has said, I'm Nancy Wulfekule. I'm from Wolverton, Minnesota. I work at Minn-Dak Farmers Cooperative. I've been there 29 years. I used to tell everybody I was there when I was 15. Now I'm down to age 10. I don't know how low I can go. I was born and raised on a farm by Abercrombie, North Dakota, and I graduated from North Dakota State College of Science. I have a business administration degree. This is a picture of the Flaw Farm in the 1800s. We're a fifth generation farm family. My family, my grandpa started farming, my great grandpa started farming in Norway, and they moved to North Dakota, and he bought this farmstead from the man who homesteaded it. That gentleman had never farmed it, so when my great-grandfather came from Norway, they started farming, and my grandpa took over at age 16, and my dad took over at age 19. He's still farming. He will be 80 in April. This is a picture, KFGO came by south by Abercrombie a couple years ago, took a picture, and this is our family combining wheat. And my son, Tyler, he's like, "Mom, did you see that picture?" I said, "No, what? How do you know it's us?" He goes, "Well, Mom, look at the truck." Really? Okay. Be pretty cool if my grandpa could see this. He would be amazed. My husband and Joe and I have two children. We have Lacey, who works at Minn-Dak Farmers Cooperative. She worked there in the research department, and now is an ag educator here in Norman and Mahnomen County. Some of you may know her. They both graduated from NDSU. Tyler is farming with us on the family farm. My husband's parents and my parents are both original shareholders of Minn-Dak Farmers Cooperative. They started that in 1972. We've been growing sugar beets ever since, from 1974. We also grow wheat, soybeans, corn, sugar beets, as I said. Grew some barley here the last couple of years. And my kids have some show cattle that they sell to 4-H'ers. So that's a little bit of a background on myself and my family. So tonight I just want to give you some information about the truths and myths that we hear about GMOs and biotechnology. And some of you may have seen this video, but I'm going to play it for you just to show you what's out there. This obviously was in California. Maybe some of you have seen this.
To a new study that was done by Consumer Reports, a majority of packaged goods that are labeled natural are actually contain genetically modified ingredients, which makes it unclear, as to whether they are natural or not, because they grow, but they've been modified in a laboratory or whatever. Apparently, the FDA will allow companies to put the word natural on a product label as long as it says JKLOL on the back of the product. But critics of genetically modified organisms, or GMOs, claim that they pose health risks. It's a complicated issue, though, because there isn't a lot of evidence to back that up. Still, some people are dead set against them. There's been legislation designed to limit GMOs. You see documentaries and angry Facebook posts about it. How many of you do not want GMOs in your body? Yes? Okay, a lot of people. All right. So, as I usually do when people take a stance on a complicated issue, I wondered how many people who are against GMOs really know what they are. So we sent a crew to one of our local farmers markets to ask people why they avoid GMOs, and more specifically, what the letters GMOs stand for. Enjoy.
Do you try to avoid GMOs in your diet?
I do. Yeah.
Tell me why.
There's just a vibration with GMOs. For me personally, just something that I don't particularly want to put into my body.
What does GMO stand for?
Genetically modified. Genetically modified.
The O?
The
O.
I don't know.
Bishop Don Magic Wand, what is a GMO?
Well, I'm not really sure. You have to make me familiar with that. What is a GMO?
Do you try to avoid GMOs in your diet?
Yeah, absolutely.
Why is that?
Just the effects, I guess, on myself.
What does GMO stand for?
Man, putting me on the under the grill. Let's see. I don't even remember.
Do you try to avoid GMOs in your diet?
Absolutely,
Why?
because they're not good for you.
What is a GMO?
It's genetically modified. I don't know, what is it?
If you are eating whole foods, you want to eat what you're eating. You know what I mean? You want to eat what you see, and so, and you're avoiding processed food. But when the whole food is somehow contaminated, that's kind of making it a moot point.
What does GMO stand for?
Genetically manufactured. Oh.
What is a GMO?
General modified ingredient, right?
What is a GMO?
It's something modified.
Do you try to avoid GMOs?
Sometimes. Not a whole lot, but, I try.
What is a GMO?
I don't know. I swear. I was just going along with it. I don't know what GMO is.
What is a GMO?
I don't know. I know it's like some corn bad stuff, right? I know it's bad, but to be completely honest with you, I have no idea.
What is a GMO?
I don't know, so I really don't care. It doesn't affect me. I'm not sick. I'm fine. So.
What is a GMO?
It's a genetically modified organism.
And what's GMO spelled backwards?
OMG. Nice.
Yeah, well, there you go. Now we have to figure out what an OMG is.
This is the kind of people we're dealing with. Yeah, that probably was in California, but they're out there. They're out there. They're on social media. They're on Facebook. They're telling us as farmers what we are doing wrong, but they still have no idea. The GMO debate, it's sort of like a fork in the road. One side, there's fears that are created by misinformation out on that social media, out on the internet. And the other side is the facts, which we all know about. People are more concerned now, more than ever, about what they eat and what goes on in agriculture, and that's good, but we need to get the truth out there. We need to let them know what we do. How many have you ever Googled GMO on the internet? If you have, these are a few of the images that pop up. Apparently no one's overboiled an egg like I have. And then a tomato, it's got syringes in it. Well, that's not even, we don't even have GMO tomatoes on the market. They aren't made with syringes, and at the moment they're not even, like I said, made with tomatoes. The false image is everywhere, and surveys indicate that consumers fear GMOs, but they don't know much about them, as was seen in that video. This is a nice little chart that shows the history of modification in crops. Started 10,000 years ago. And if you notice right here in the 40s and 50s, that's when the breeders decided to find different ways of getting different crops bred. They began using irradiation and chemicals to force mutations in genes, and they were never tested. So what is a GMO? Well, it's a plant developed through a process in which a copy of a desired gene or a section of genetic material from one plant or organism is placed in another. To put it simply, we take a single gene from here and we place it over here. And there are currently 9 GMOs available in the US. We have corn, soybeans, cotton, alfalfa or canola, alfalfa, sugar beets, papaya, summer squash, and potatoes. So potatoes that won't bruise, apples that won't brown, those are a step closer. In fact, the apples are now in select markets in the United States. The Arctic apple, it's been modified by removing the enzyme that turns an apple brown after it's hit, the oxygen has hit it. And potatoes, J.R. Simplot potatoes, they're going to market their potato under the name Innate, and they have 40% less bruising from impacts and pressure during harvest and storage. And the company says that this will reduce more than 3 billion pounds of potatoes that are discarded each year by consumers. 3 billion. Some of those starving countries, I bet, would love to have their hands on those potatoes. So how are plant varieties created? Well, we have 3 options. We have selective breeding, we have mutagenesis, and we have genetic engineering. So what is selective breeding? It can take years to get a proper cross because we get the targeted trait, plus we get all the unwanted genetic traits. It is used both in conventional and organic agriculture. It is not reviewed by the FDA. As you can see on this chart, kohlrabi, kale, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, cabbage, cauliflower, they were all derived from the wild mustard plant. Does anybody know what this would be right here on the top of the screen? Anybody want to take a guess? That's teosinte. That's what our corn would look like without selective breeding. How about this? Anybody wager a guess? That's what our bananas would look like without selective breeding. So that's just a couple examples. So mutagenesis. That is another way of creating different varieties. And if you recall from that prior slide, that's the breeding method that was started in the 1940s and 1950s. It uses trial and error to create new crops by using chemicals and radiation to scramble the DNA and force mutations. It is used both in conventional and organic agriculture. It is not reviewed by the FDA. There have been 2,200 varieties created in the last 75 years. Everything from what you see here, rice, pears, and the ruby red grapefruit. So what is genetic engineering? It adds 1 gene per trait. So to put it in perspective, sugar beets have 27,420 genes. Came from Luther Marquardt up in Washington, told me the precise amount of genes. Corn has 32,000 genes. Canola has 100,000 genes, and we are just changing 1. Do you know how many genes our humans have? Does anybody have a guess? 20,000. That'd be like, sort of like that crazy relative. You know, they've got that one redeeming value, but you want that, but you'd get everything else. Sorry, Lace. Genetic engineering, it's quicker, it's more precise, and it's more predictable than any other options. And it's the only crop production method that is tested prior to commercialization, and it is fully reviewed by the FDA. So those are just truths about GMO. Now we're going to talk a little bit about some myths like this poor lady had. You know, we've heard, oh, GMOs, they've not been tested. Well, in fact, they're the most regulated and most tested product in agriculture history. $136 million to develop and approve on average. The FDA says that they're safe to eat. They check 96 nutritional components in soybeans, and the FDA checks 73 nutritional components in corn. The USDA has tested, said they're safe to grow. EPA says, yeah, they're safe for the environment. And the National Academy of Sciences, just a year and a half ago, released a 388-page report that said they reviewed more than 900 studies covering over 20 years and said they are safe for humans and animals. So that's quite a lot of testing when the other breeding methods haven't been tested. So again, GMOs haven't been tested. So to put this in perspective, cars, Xbox, ketchup packets, they take 3 years. A Boeing 787 Dreamliner, which we all fly on, takes 8.5 years. Your pharmaceutical medicine takes 12 years, and a single GM trait takes 13 years and $136 million. You know, we hear, oh, the GMO, they're bad for the environment. Well, farmers, we hear, oh, you farmers, you douse your fields with chemicals. Well, apparently they've never paid for chemical. So, and the percentage that, you know, of chemical that's being sprayed is 98% water and 2% is the chemical. And water is the only way to get that spray to cover the crop. In reality, by planting GMO crops, we are more efficient and sustainable. We use less land, water, and chemicals. This reduces the cost of the environmental footprint, and we have better plant and soil health. We have used an estimated 600 million pounds less insecticide, less tillage. In 1 year, Biotech reduces CO2 emissions equivalent to removing 12 million cars from the road for a full year. And I just want to talk about this picture right here. This is one of our Biotech spokeswomen put this little meme together. And this is exactly the truth. My husband has said, if I have to go back to conventional, I will be done. I will not do it. This is the amount, these chemicals he would use, but 6 to 10 times a summer. That's all he did. He would spray at night because it was so toxic to that plant that he couldn't do it during the day. It'd have to be at night because when the sun hit it, it dinged that plant back so hard. Now we use Roundup, 1 jug. We hear a lot about labeling. That's been in the news quite a bit. You know, consumers want a safe, nutritious and affordable food. The FDA states that food labels are reserved for nutritional, ingredient, and allergy information. The new labeling law that was passed last year in July, it's been a year and a half, I bet. They say that the labels need to have an option of one of 3 forms. They need to have either written text, a symbol, or an electronic or digital code, which is a QR code that provides access to the product information page. The fact that food is produced or derived from genetic engineering is not the determining factor as to whether food meets the statutory definition of bioengineered food. It must also be established that the food contains genetic material, for example, transgenic DNA or proteins. And one really cool, I guess, because of sugar beets, sugar has no DNA and it has no protein. Neither does salt. No DNA or no protein. So if they want to go with the labeling law, sugar and salt would be probably the only 2 items that would be able to be labeled natural. GMOs allow us as farmers to preserve the land while doing more with less resources. By the year, you probably have heard this, by the year 2050, the population is expected to increase by 20% to about 9 billion people. In 2014, GMOs allowed farmers to use 51 million less acres of land to produce the same amount of food, fuel, and fiber crops. This is equivalent to all the farmland in Iowa and Missouri. Without access to GMOs, farmers would have needed to plant an additional 22 million acres of corn, 19 million acres of soybeans, 9 million acres of cotton, and 1.5 million acres of canola to keep up with the global production levels in 2014. The whole reason GMOs were created is so that we could do a better job of farming, to be more efficient, to save money and fuel, and without this technology to control weeds, over half of the corn and soybeans in the United States and Canada would be lost. You know, we hear a misconception that organic uses 0 pesticides. Well, in fact, there are actually 470 approved pesticide products listed on the Organic Materials Review Institute site. And 100 of these cannot even be used in the United States. Here's a picture of a few of the amazing GMOs. Dozens of GMOs have existed and they have been used to benefit humans and animal welfare. Cheese, right here, uses bioengineered chymosin, and that's to protect the welfare of veal calves and to have a cheap and limitless supply of enzymes. When that labeling law came in, if you recall, it was Vermont. They were all about this labeling law. Well, they exempted their maple syrup and cheese because that's what their state could produce. But everybody else, we'd have to abide by their law. But, you know, cheese is one of the main users of a GMO. Insulin. This one hits home for me. I have a nephew who, before he was age 2, was type 1 diabetic. He uses a pump right now, so every day I'm thanking God that we have insulin so that he can survive. For years, diabetics relied on insulin purified from animals, primarily cattle and pigs, and in 1978, insulin became the first human protein to be manufactured through biotechnology. So today, all insulin for human use is manufactured from GMO bacteria. I'm going to talk a little bit about the golden rice. It's a great example of improving a non-nutrient staple food that is heavily consumed in very poor countries. The World Health Organization estimates that 124 million people suffer from vitamin A deficiency, and 1 to 2 million of those people die each year from this deficiency. They say it causes blindness in 250 to 500,000 children each year. Half of them die within the first year of becoming blind. The addition of beta-carotene to rice gives it its golden color. It provides enough of the nutrient to prevent vitamin A deficiency and blindness. That gene gives corn its bright yellow color, and it was inserted into the rice's DNA. The yellow color in daffodils, corn, mangoes, and the orange color in carrots, yams, and pumpkins are all caused by the presence of beta-carotene. Golden rice is the obvious cure, but because it was created with genetic science, Greenpeace and the anti-GMO movement fervently oppose it, and no country has been able to approve it for cultivation, and it's been around for close to 20 years. I was at a conference in Fargo at the Fargo Dome, and Patrick Moore used to be the head of Greenpeace. He spoke to us and he said for what they've done for humanitarian effort, he absolutely despises Greenpeace. So it's pretty interesting to hear him speak about how he started Greenpeace and then has left Greenpeace because of their values and what they've done. So GMOs have helped feed over 300 million Americans and a global population of 7 billion. Up to 90% of the food consumed by farm animals comes from biotech crops, mostly from corn and soybeans. So there are literally billions of farm animals in the US who consume billions of pounds of biotech feed, and there have been 0 illnesses caused by consuming biotech foods for either humans or animals. And this is just a slide. It shows the accredited scientific organizations that state GMOs are safe. Crops and foods produced through biotechnology have been scrutinized for safety in advance, in depth, and in detail more than any other foods in human history. So now I've given you a little bit of some background. We've looked at organic, conventional, and genetic engineering. The truth is they are all safe. We live in the United States. We have agencies who make sure the food supply that we have is very safe. Americans were once as fearful of microwaves and pasteurizing milk as they currently are of GMOs. We know that there's a coordinated and persistent effort to attack genetic engineering by the non-scientific activists. So that's the reason we need to get out and we need to tell people what we do. We have a great story to tell. We just need to get our message out to those consumers and those customers. They cannot make an informed decision based on misinformation. We choose to use biotechnology because of the overwhelming benefit to us and to our farms. And if you take one thing away from this presentation, just remember, GMO is a breeding method. It is not an ingredient. People, I think sometimes out on that social media, out on the internet, oh my gosh, they're poisoning us, they're putting things in our food. It's not an ingredient, it's a breeding method. So this is a slide just of some of the websites that you can go to. We started a Facebook page for Minn-Dak Farmers Cooperative, and for a year and a half, we dedicated it solely to GMO and biotech information. So any article that I post out there depends on my job. So if there's something, if you don't know, how do I go about, how do I even bring up this subject? Share an article on Facebook and you'd be pretty surprised of some of the interactions that you get. And I will guarantee that what is posted on our Facebook page regarding GMOs is absolutely correct because my job depends on it. So I sit a lot of times at work and I'm sure people walk by thinking, oh my gosh, all she's doing is on Facebook. But I'm looking up articles and I make sure that there is credible information, and so if there's any time you need something or if you have any questions, just reach out to me. Send me a message on Facebook. I've got cards too, and also we have our website and I run that also, so if you have any information or any questions, anything, just let me know. Does anybody have any questions right now?
Who's against GMOs? Is it profit-driven, or why would they be?
It's the Jeffrey Smiths of the world, Whole Foods, Trader Joe's. That Jeffrey Smith, he is the organic marketer. No, the Jeffrey Smith, organic marketing. He has said that it's never been the end game. We want to eliminate GMOs no matter what, because our market share, we need to get our market share up. And that is absolutely where things started. And you have a lot of people who only get their information from the internet. They don't watch the nightly news, they don't read newspapers. A couple of years ago, we were down in Minneapolis for work for Minn-Dak, and we were in a restaurant, and we had this nice, cute little waitress, and she obviously could tell we did not belong in Minneapolis, so she's like, "What are you guys doing here?" Yeah, we work at a sugar beet plant, and my boss, Kurt Wickstrom, he's the president of Minn-Dak, he's like, "Well, Nancy, she's a farmer." What? What do you mean, you farm? Yeah, we do. So all the food that you receive, you find in the grocery store, it's somehow come back to us. Oh. Well, she asked, what do you think of Monsanto? It's like, well, we had just gone and had gotten trained down at Monsanto and took a tour, which Monsanto is Monsanto, whatever. But man, going through that facility is something anyone who ever eats should really have to go through. It is amazing. It's amazing what they do every day. So I'm with my president, the vice president, and they look at me and say, well, here you go. Here's your shot. So I sat up and I said, well, what do you think? Well, they're bad. I said, what happened? Did you have some interaction with them? Well, no, but I read it on Facebook. Oh, I said, well, can I tell you what I know about them? So, I wasn't confrontational with her, just let her speak first. And after I got done, we're farmers and we thank them every day because we are able to use less and receive more. She did think about it, and I asked her, I said, just promise me one thing. If you do see something out there, if you hear something out there, just do a little bit of investigation. Go out, check it out, check the source. See if you can find any other information other than what is exactly sitting right on your Facebook page. And she told me she would, but she probably wanted to get away, I don't know. In the back? Yeah, exactly. And when you see non-GMO water, Her question was, who allowed all these labels? Well, it's these companies, you know, they know that it's coming down the pipe, but it's called marketing. Marketing. We have, in Wahpeton, we have Giant Seeds. They're the official sunflower seed for the Minnesota Twins. Jay Schuler, know him, had the non-GMO label on sunflower seeds. I tell you what, the farmers around went in and said, Jay, are you kidding me? There are no GMO sunflowers. Yeah, I know, but it's marketing. Come on. He did take it off. It's off. It's marketing. It's all marketing. And people, those consumers are driving those marketing decisions, those labeling, and that's why people are pushing for those labels. If you see on my Facebook page, on the Facebook page for Minn-Dak, it's called Peel Back the Label, and they are going out and like Del Monte, non-GMO carrots. Well, there are no GMO carrots. I mean, there's a lot of those. People are stepping up and they're going after some of this misconceptions.
Have you ever brought any of your information that you learned for your career back to the farm or back to your husband's parents or your parents, and have they kind of like questioned you or not thought that it was really, I don't, since you're a woman and I feel like that happens a lot more. Have you had any of those kind of experiences?
Very good point. She's just saying how because a women in ag, maybe some people don't believe you, maybe. And I have to say, my dad, he's backing me all the way. He's backing everything we do. You know, he's going to be 80, and he is not one of those guys that, you know, goes downtown and, well, you know, guess what? I plant corn, I plant sugar beets. He's not one. You know, probably our grandparents, our dads, our great-grandparents, they were the guys, they went out every day and they busted their butts working hard, and that's what they did. They didn't even think that somebody would question what they're doing. When we were down at Monsanto and got to tour that facility, they admitted, we screwed up. We're 20 years behind the 8 ball. We just never would have thought that somebody would attack the farmers for growing their food. We just can't even believe it. You know, Monsanto, and maybe some of you don't remember, but do you remember the Wherever carpet, Monsanto carpet, and they had cleaners and they had a whole line of products. They dropped all those products, they sold that product line off, and they said what we really wanted to do was to work with our farmers, work with the farmers. The farmers came to us and said, we got to do something, this is not working. We can't have a whole 10 different amounts of chemical to put on our crops we got to have something done. So, you know, yeah, and I haven't, honestly, Megan Klosterman here, she's part of our Biotech Spokeswoman group. We're very lucky that we are in this Red River Valley. We have got a couple gals, one gal's out in Oregon and one gal's out in California. I would never trade places ever, because they have some wackos out there. Wow. Yes? Well, okay, so with our biotech abilities, the GMOs, we won't have to tear up like rainforests and different forests. We won't have to get more land if we can continue to use that technology. And I tell you what, I think if push came to shove, I know that a lot of our farmers in the area, they would not back down from that. It is just, it's like taking away, so a doctor, you went in years ago, we had an x-ray, now you have a digital imagery. Are they gonna take that away? You know, cell phones, before we had a rotary dial, now we have cell phones. Are they gonna take that away? And I don't think that is, but I think more people are stepping up and getting the story out there. You know, this is what we do. You're on an airplane, or I was at a conference. I was at the Minnesota Agri-Growth Conference here just last Thursday. And I was standing around a table. This young, cute little gal comes up, and she is the sustainability person from General Mills. And I said, oh, I said, so what do you do? Well, we have to go out and try to get they want to go out and talk to farmers and get that imagery back, so that the consumers can see on their General Mills boxes that, yep, these farmers, they care about the land. And again, have they bought land per acre? Apparently not. Because our land is our legacy. That's what we hope to pass on to our children, so we're gonna take darn good care of that land. And I told her then, I said, well, I'm part of that Biotech Spokeswoman group, and I said, you know, I said, where in the world did this go wrong? I said, why would people start attacking us when we're growing their food? And she said, exactly, but it's out there, and they have a whole division in General Mills just to cover that. So it's amazing where this has gone, Jenna. Wow. Well, she was wondering about what's the craziest thing I've ever heard about or seen with sharing some of these articles. And I do have to admit, you know, the people that come to our Facebook page and share the articles, they're great. And it's the farmers around that just know that they can come and get a good article. But some of the really crazy things that I've heard and seen, that people actually think, now this is even GMO, this is farming, that chocolate milk comes from brown cows. I mean, oh my goodness, and you hardly think that can be true, but it is. And brown, oh. And some of these people vote. Ay, ay, ay. Amy? Exactly. No, very good point. She was talking about organic. When people pitch the argument about organics, they're much more safe. And like Amy said, we eat the food we produce. And if you need backup, like I said in the slide, that Organics Materials Review, they use harsher chemicals than we do. And that's just how it is. It's not like they're trying to do something bad. And most organic farmers, they're just trying. I mean, they're diversifying just like the rest of us when we're growing our different crops. They're just trying. It's those people that are in the marketing, in the Whole Foods, they're the ones that are making it tough on those poor organic farmers. You know, they're just trying. And again, 470 approved pesticides, 100 of them aren't even allowed in the United States. So that might be a good ending. So, all right, well, thank you guys very much. You've been great. Thank you.